It is the smallest country in the world, covering 110 acres and with a population of just over 1,000 people, right in the middle of Rome. But how does the economy of this small state operate? How do they make and spend their money? To put it simply, it is complicated and somewhat shrouded in mystery, as the Vatican has published very little information over the years about its finances and investments. The amount of money it actually has is unknown. First thing that you need to realise is that the Holy See/the Vatican are made up of many different entities. For example, Vatican City State, which makes money through enterprises like the Vatican Museums, the administration of the patrimony of the Apostolic See, which makes money by renting around 3,700 buildings in Rome, the Institute for Religious Works, or IOR, which some call the Vatican Bank, Propaganda Fide, which looks after the Church's foreign missions, and there are more. The reason why Vatican finances are somewhat complicated is historic.
Vatican finances, the modern ones, developed with Vatican City State that was born in 1929. But the Vatican State, in fact, existed before. It was the Pontifical States, and they were composed of donations. The Pope's territories were generally donations by faithful people. So all these donations needed an administration, and the administrations became furtherly and furtherly more complicated.
The problem with understanding where the Vatican stands financially is that traditionally each body within the Vatican has been overseeing its own finances. Until now, there hasn't been an overarching body governing all the finances. But what about the Vatican Bank? We hear this name a lot in the media. Well, its full name is the Institute for Religious Works, and this institution is perhaps the most controversial and little understood part of the Vatican's finances. And despite being referred to as a bank, it's not actually a bank.
They call it the Vatican Bank because IOR makes money transfer, delivers salaries, so they think it's a bank because it has some bank operations, and it also has investments, obviously. But in fact, it is not a bank.
This is not actually a bank, because when you have a bank, the business of the bank is to lend money. Well, the Vatican Bank will never lend you money.
It has no branches outside of the Vatican. There is just one branch, and it's in the Vatican.
They just receive money, and they administer the money and send it to the missions. That's why it's the works of religion.
It's not a bank because it does not lend money. However, it does give out money, mainly to religious orders and other church bodies around the world. And as it is located within the state of Vatican City, it is not bound by many of the same financial regulations as other banks, let's say just a few hundred meters away in Italy. This is useful for the Church, as it can transfer money to other parts of the world that may be blacklisted in other banks.
Imagine that you have a congregation of nuns that they work in Sudan. What happens is that the financial system may not allow you to send money there because of money laundering or because of terrorism. So what happens is that the Vatican allows this possibility because it's not an Italian financial institution, and it sends money and it receives money.
But because of the lack of regulations, over the decades it has been at the centre of numerous scandals and accusations of mismanagement and fraud. At the end of 2018, its assets were valued at about $5.6 billion. Another Vatican institution which raises funds is the Pontifical Mission Societies, whose aim is to aid missionaries all over the globe. What is the overall budget of the Pontifical Mission Societies per year?
Normally we have $130, $140 million. Our aim is first of all to support the activity of the local church. Every diocese can present a certain amount of projects for special needs, to build up a chapel, for example, or to print liturgical books, or to help sisters in a monastery.
How do you ensure that the money you send out and allocate is used properly? Like many other Vatican entities, they self-govern their finances and hold themselves accountable. They also work closely with the papal nuncios in the countries to which they give funds to, and the local bishops, to try and make sure that the money goes towards the causes they are intended for.
But I would add one other thing which is important to me. This is the principle of trust. Within the church, we should also trust each other.
Trust and now transparency. As part of ongoing efforts for financial reform at the Vatican, Pope Francis has established the Vatican Council for the Economy to bring the Vatican's accounting and financial transparency up to international standards. The council is made up of cardinals and lay members, like Ruth Kelly, a former education secretary in the United Kingdom, who says the Vatican financial structure is different to most others she's seen.
There are clerics at the heart of major decisions in the Holy See, many of whom have not been involved, in fact the majority of whom have not been involved in equivalent organisations before starting to run major sums of money. So there's both a difference in terms of the experience of the people involved and the expectations, I suppose, which arguably are even higher than you might expect in a secular organisation. To be brutally honest about it, it's not clear how funds have been flowing and how they've been managed because the transparency hasn't been there.
Changes are taking place, but some wonder, will these changes and consolidation of funds be a help or hindrance to the mission of the Church?
What I said, it is not in order to avoid transparency, because we are looking for transparency. But my point is we have to add to normal bureaucratic or business criteria, we have to add another criterion which is typical for the Church, which is the trust to the person. If we do not trust to the person, we can do nothing.
The many holy people working here in the Holy See understand that there's a mission that should never depend on economic dynamics. You should be very aware that people working with the money understand the mission. If you separate both, you may have a lot of money, but you may lose the mission.
In Rome, Colm Flynn, EWTN News in Depth.